This is your Storm Tracker team forecast first.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. This is your forecast first. Well, we've got a nice mild night ahead of us, a couple clouds out there. We should start out mainly dry. Obviously, as we move into tomorrow, nice warm one out there again. We're talking highs in the upper 80s. Going to get very summer-like out there for at least a few more days before another cold front comes around the corner. But here's the deal. We've got to deal with a couple rounds of rain this week. Will they ruin our Holy Week? We'll talk more about that coming up in just a few. Local 33 News at 10 starts right now.
Coming up, funeral homes overwhelmed as COVID-19 claims the lives of hundreds in Louisiana, how they're changing the way they handle remains.
Plus, Capital City volunteers picking up needles and thread for first responders, how many masks the group is trying to make every day.
Good Tuesday night. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Chad Savity.
And I'm Carly Lang. Thank you for joining us for Local 33 News at 10. Now, here's what we know tonight. The governor says Louisiana has now tested more people per capita for COVID-19 than any other state.
Currently, more than 16,000 confirmed cases in the state. For reference, that's almost as many people as the entire population of Zachary. Meanwhile, nearly 600 people have died statewide. And with this rising death toll, local funeral homes now say they have a lot to handle.
NBC Local 33's Jonah Gilmore explains the extra safety precautions that are being taken and what one funeral home owner says is now his biggest fear.
At DeSalle Funeral Home in Baton Rouge, business is busier than usual.
Putting in longer days and longer nights.
Owner Jonathan Rose says the high volume is partially due to the coronavirus.
We've seen an increasing amount of deaths come through the funeral home since the COVID-19 virus has appeared.
He says his team is now taking extra protective measures when dealing with people who have died from the virus.
Making sure that we're wearing the proper protective equipment throughout the process. This has just heightened the way that we handle things.
Dr. Alex Buell with the Louisiana Department of Health says right now it's unclear if the virus could be passed from a carrier after they die.
One of the things we can say, because we do see people who are tested after they die, is that pretty reliably for up to 72 hours afterwards, we're seeing test results come back positive. What we don't know is if that virus itself is still able to infect people.
Rose says it's that statement that now has him in fear.
The hardest part for me out of all this is the unknown.
He says seeing firsthand what this virus is capable of doing, he too is urging everyone to stay safe.
They're not just saying these things just to be saying them. We're at the end result of what happens to someone that couldn't fight off this disease. It's serious and people are dying.
Jonah Gilmore, NBC Local 33 News.
Now, Rose says he is limiting the number of people that are allowed at funerals, and he says even though it is tough turning away loved ones, he knows it is in the best interest of the community.
Continuing coverage tonight of a developing situation at Oakdale Federal Prison in central Louisiana. Yesterday, we told you about 5 inmates there who have died of COVID-19 and that the American Civil Liberties Union has filed suit to get vulnerable inmates released to home confinement. Today, multiple Louisiana lawmakers echoed that call. U.S. Senator John Kennedy, Senator Bill Cassidy, and Representative Mike Johnson sent a letter to the Bureau of Prisons urging, quote, decisive action at Oakdale and demanding answers as to how so many inmates contracted COVID-19. They say it's a matter not just of prisoner safety, but keeping the virus from spreading to both prison staff and community members.
Well, today, Governor John Bel Edwards announced there may not be a ventilator shortage thanks to social distancing measures, but this doesn't mean that we're in the clear just yet. NBC Local 33's Kennedy Walker explains the danger of celebrating too soon.
Tuesday, Governor John Bel Edwards hinted to a positive change in the state's fight against COVID-19.
We are seeing early signs that the curve is starting to flatten.
According to Governor Edwards, fewer COVID-19 patients are on ventilators, leading him to believe the state will not run out in the next 2 weeks.
What this reflects, we believe, is improvements in the way we are dispensing medical care in Louisiana and achieving better results with fewer people having to be placed on vents and people being able to come off vents a little earlier.
But Edwards says this doesn't mean residents should stop following the rules in place.
Things can shift again, and they will shift again if people decide that their job is over and that they're no longer going to comply with our stay-at-home and social distancing. If that happens, our cases will spike and we'll be right back where we were.
Edwards says despite the positive change, the state still has a long way to go.
This is a public health emergency. It is extremely serious.
Kennedy Walker, NBC Local 33 News.
Today, the governor also announced that new numbers show COVID-19 is killing African Americans at a higher rate than other groups in Louisiana. The latest numbers from the Louisiana Department of Health show 582 COVID-19 deaths reported in the state. 70% of those are African American. Most of the deaths have been caused by underlying issues like hypertension and diabetes.
Our state is ranked high in health disparities. But we're also number one in poverty and obesity. So we have to address these health inadequacies instantly. Or if something's not done soon, we're going to continue to lose people, not just to COVID-19, but just to the health disparities alone.
And that was Dr. Ronnie Whitfield. He says there is now a larger dialogue about health equity in communities across the nation, and a significant racial disparity in COVID-19 victims is indeed being reported in many cities, including Chicago, LA, and Charlotte. President Trump also addressed the issue at a news conference this afternoon.
We're actively engaging on the problem of increased impacts. This is a real problem, and it's showing up very strongly in our data on the African American community, and we're doing everything in our power to address this challenge. It's a tremendous challenge. It's terrible.
Now, federal health officials have not released any nationwide data on the racial breakdown of COVID-19 patients.
Now to a consumer alert tonight. You may have seen ads online for things like home COVID-19 testing kits. The U.S. Justice Department says these are all fake, and it's not the only way scammers are preying on people's fears right now. NBC Local 33's Alexandra Limon details a new federal team setting out to take down coronavirus criminals.
Peter McCoy has been U.S. Attorney for the District of South Carolina for just 1 week.
We're seeing folks that are out there taking advantage of people while they're scared.
The Justice Department asked all U.S. attorneys to focus on crimes related to the coronavirus. So McCoy set up a coronavirus strike team.
You're going to probably see these things popping up all across the districts, across the nation.
Because people are spending more time at home, they're also spending more time online and on social media. And that makes everyone more likely to encounter scams.
Hey, I've got test kits that are out here. Send me your information and send me this much money, and we'll send you the kit.
The FDA has not approved an at-home coronavirus test, and there is no vaccine yet. Scammers are also selling in-demand products like hand sanitizers and masks,
with no intention on deliveries,
because they don't actually have the supplies. Suspected fraud can be reported to the National Center for Disaster Fraud, or NCDF, by phone or email. The information will be investigated and compiled into a national database. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
The email to report suspected fraud is disaster@leo.gov. That's disaster@leo.gov.
Well, back here closer to home, a group of volunteers is helping out first responders with some homemade protection equipment. Former BRPD Chief Pat Inglade says the group is getting together at the Bogan Fire Museum to sew masks for firefighters, law enforcement, and workers at Women's Hospital. Their goal is to make 250 masks a day.
5 of us, sometimes there's 8 of us. It just kind of depends on how many people and how much fabric we get pre-cut.
Now, the volunteers say only one person in the group actually knew how to sew before they started, and she has since taught everyone else how to sew.
A great team effort right there. Days before the latest unemployment numbers go out, the head of Louisiana's Labor Department is urging self-employed and gig workers that federal help is on the way. You may recall D.C. lawmakers advanced measures to give so-called independent contractors as much as $600 a week. And while that money hasn't come yet, it's likely to make its way to the state within the next few weeks.
We'll get through this together. We need to be patient with one another, understanding of the challenges that this brings, the uncertainty that this brings, but we will get through this together.
The federal unemployment dollars are retroactive. That means people with little or no work should still file their claims with the Louisiana Workforce Commission, so the state knows how many weeks to cover. About 155,000 Louisiana residents filed for unemployment claims through the end of March. Still to come tonight, companies switching up their production lines to make critically needed supplies. We'll have those details.
Plus, voters turned out to the polls in one state today over lawmakers' objections, how Wisconsin became the only state not to move its April primaries. That's next, right here on NBC Local 33 News at 10.